lineups. Like, I am one of that 25% that got kind of screwed by Juju Smith-Schuster. I'll be 100% there.
I think
like,
it was
almost 100%.
I think the reason why it didn't hurt me too much is because when I played Juju, I mean, there was one or two lineups where it wasn't this way, but when I played Juju, I for some reason always had a Kareem Hunt and didn't bring Mahomes with it. I just had everything I was supposed to that game and didn't have any extra garbage.
And guys, I was so excited that we were actually early. We're on time. We're trying to be more efficient with the NBA going on. People want to get in and get out. I mean, obviously, this wasn't a fun week to review. This is like, even the winning lineups, I was listening to a lot of portfolio reviews, and a lot of the winning lineups had like low scores. But I actually find those kind of like, these kind of weeks hard to digest, but also very meaningful and needed digestions, because I think you learn the most from these kind of weeks to propel you for the next week. Because I talked about it, I think, a lot the first week where like the salaries come out so far in advance that people have this like overreaction theater, or they like talk themselves into narrative so much because you have so much time to digest that slate. I find a week like this, because I set a record. I'll show it. I have no shame because I played it. We showed it on the show, so I don't mind showing the results. I think I scored the lowest I've ever scored in DraftKings in like 5 years. I'm not kidding. Not playing. I'm not happy about it, but it happened. So I have to use those icicles and try to make them into water again, and try to melt them and try to learn something from this slate. And that's honestly, Gov, I'm actually disappointed with the industry as a whole. I was listening to a lot of reviews, and they were kind of mocking or making fun, or like, it wasn't so much they weren't willing to eat their crow, but it was like they were eating their crow with like a smile on their face, or like it was a joke. Like, no one's happy they lose money, but I thought we could have handled it from a more processed perspective a lot better, and I hope we can do that on this show. Like, don't get me wrong, I want to win, but I do think there were some really good plays this week, and I don't think it was just this. I don't think we walked into a casino this week and like some people got lucky. I think some people made bad mistakes and other people capitalized, and that's how I view this.
Funny enough, last week when we ended the show, or when we did our lineup builder, it was pretty self-explanatory. We kind of told ourselves this week was pretty, basic. Don't overthink it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we did that very well. For me, it worked personally. I know it worked a bit on the show. Gov, I think you said before we went live that you didn't cash this week. But overall, I feel like this week went exactly how we expected. Obviously, there's a random Jonnu Smith there, but there wasn't any huge shocker to me. It was very boring week process-wise going in, very boring week process-wise coming out.
It wasn't boring because we did see a lot of injuries, like whether they were luck injuries that you benefited from, whether they were injuries that we saw. Like, I'm going to be honest, we saw a lot of grave, like, season. I'll say this, because there were season-ending injuries, but there were season-altering injuries as well. Like, people that are going to play next week that are going to be forced into, to opportunities like McMillan that we got on our best ball. Like, they lost Godwin and Mike Evans long-term. Like, Mike Evans will come back, but much later in the year. Godwin's done.
It's going to be about a month for Mike Evans. Godwin's done for the year. Ayuk's done for the year.
So it wasn't just like, oh, I got a 0 this week. I got unlucky, guys. Listen to how I got unlucky.
Juju, who was getting a lot of targets, is also gone for at least a couple weeks. Hamstrings are a pain in the ass, and this is going to be one of those pain in the ass hammies that is not going to get better for a while.
Yeah. And, shout out to Evan, who was on our show a lot. He talked a lot about like luck and how much of DFS is luck. And I never shied away from luck being part of it. Like, injuries and who gets injured and who doesn't sometimes is luck. Now, sometimes you have we mentioned basketball tonight, so it's front of mind, but like a guy like Porzingis, or a body type like Porzingis, bigger, lumbering guy, he's going to get injured on a basketball court more often than a guy who's lower center of gravity, perhaps. But there's also a luck factor into it. So, like, I'm not shying away from, we got a 0 because of an unlucky injury, but you have to bake that into your process. Like, there are times where you're like, hey, I took this guy who may not get a lot of targets this week, right? like there's a reason you've taken Elijah Moore, for example, as Johnny pulled up a lineup here. But there's a reason we take Elijah Moore. We're not expecting Elijah Moore to have Devontae Adams workload.
This
And
is my
so-
best personal that I have.
I
But
do know we're close to that.
What do you
Yeah.
think of Tony, Johnny? Because the first thing I thought of is Brandon Ayuk got hurt. That's the first thing that came to my head.
yeah, Brandon Ayuk gets hurt. Unfortunate. That one is just unlucky.
Yep.
Juju, we knew had a
Juju.
hamstring. That's just when I every single time I see a hamstring, I walk away and I refuse to play it. Juju was at such a good price and getting such good targets, it was worth the risk to me.
As did
didn't
20% of the field think.
Yes. I knowing my process, I should have just saw it and got away. I talked myself into it just because his price made too much sense. But whatever. I mean, Cooper, that's the unlucky part. DK also got hurt at the end of that game. I don't know what his injury was, but I doubt he would have scored anymore, but still. This lineup, I definitely got lucky on some things. Gibbs getting 2 touchdowns, I think. Yeah, 2 touchdowns. That's lucky. Kamara punching in twice in the red zone. That's kind of lucky. Obviously, Cooper saves himself with a touchdown. He could have had more, a couple drops in there. So this is the most lucky, unlucky lineup I've ever had, probably.
Mm-hmm.
It worked out. I feel like it's a good process overall. Probably shouldn't have played Grant just because the game environment wasn't good. That was overthinking it. I like how it ended up, obviously. Definitely need to reevaluate, like, why am I playing an Eagle against the Giants when I know if it's going to be an Eagle, it should have been Saquon. That's something I should have told myself.
It's funny could be that you tell yourself that in reverse, because I was telling people all week in the positive, but the same kind of logic, Donnie, was I was playing Gibbs because it was the first time that I felt like Detroit was going to actually be in a competitive, like, had to have an offensive game where it's like, oh, Detroit doesn't just like want to have fun and score points. They're going to need to score points to beat Minnesota. I thought that was that kind of
I thought he was a great play, but let's be honest, 35 points is by far exceeding what we could have expected.
No, I expected that. Like, not that. I expected big plays from him. Because if you looked at his price, he wasn't really cheap. Like, I remember talking to one of our Discord members, this week, one of the leaders in the Discord, he was like, Logan, he's not cheap. And I'm like, yes, but I know when Jared Goff needs a play, he looks underneath to St. Brown and Jahmyr Gibbs. I think they're going to have to pass to win this game. And the Lions hadn't had to pass all season. So that was my narrative, and that was my reason. It made sense. Now, maybe it doesn't work out, or maybe, Montgomery doesn't get hurt, and he's actually in on some of those big plays where, Gibbs goes and scores a touchdown. You got to be okay with when you get lucky or when you get the big play that, just like basically if Gibbs is in a different position on the field, maybe he doesn't score that long touchdown because obviously the touchdown would end the yardage. Like sometimes when you see a big break off run, it just depends on how much room they got until the end zone.
If he got 20 points, I would have been just,
right.
I would have felt vindicated in the play anyway. He finished with 35.
And that's where some people get it wrong, Gov. I'll come back to you, but like when they're looking at their lineup, they're like, well, I want this from this player. I want this from this. We just need points. Honestly, we just need points. Obviously, you have a certain set of players, and you want those players to live up to their expectation because it's easier to score points when everyone does their share. It's like a family, and when everyone pulls their weight, it's a lot easier to live. But really, we just need points at the end of the day. To me, this is one of those slates. You needed the big play guys. And if you didn't have them, you were going to lose because there was a lot of low-scoring guys.
Yep, this contest had 162 as the best lineup, and that was at the 17-point Geno. I mean, it was an interesting week.
Wow.
This is a 0-point game here. And he had the best lineup.
There was, I want to say there was at least 5 lineups I saw that took first place in different tournaments that had 0.
Geno,
and this is like, hey, I took a 0 for 4,000.
Geno single with 3 Atlanta guys.
Yeah, listen. I don't think this is the best lineup. You have 2 Falcons receivers and Bijan, but no.
Well, I'll show you where
I don't need to like the lineup, but damn it got first. So who am I to say otherwise?
Donnie, this got first race. How much money did it win? Because I'm going to show you. I'm going to tell you something else because I watched ball.
$50.
You know? Do you know JSN took a passing attempt away from Geno Smith and threw a nice deep pass to DK Metcalf? So that's actually more Geno points that realistically, you were kind of counting on in a traditional sense, but because of a gadget play, they don't get it.
I mean, honestly, it was like 30-yard completion. How much is that really fantasy point wise?
It does help though.
It's
I know,
dude. It's correlated points. You did not get.
Yes. And that's but I wanted to use a really positive example of that because people are going to point to that 0 lineup. They'll be like, "Oh, I was an idiot for playing Juju Smith-Schuster." It's like, no, 26% of people played him.
Juju is a better play than Hodge. We can say that, right? Like, he hasn't gotten targeted.
I actually think in this lineup it made sense because he's playing so much of that Seattle-Atlanta game.
He's gotten 2 targets all year, though. Like,
yes, but it's in a game script where like they are up in pace, trying to like throw, and Seattle puts you up in pace. So like it makes sense. You're just going to overstack.
I would agree.
He could have been any other 3K receiver. Like that could have totally just been Jalen Coker. If you wanted to take that shot.
This could have totally just been Sanders at 2,500. But I mean, who's to judge the winning lineup, right?
Well, I think it actually is valuable. But what I think was he was like, I need a cheap guy, but I want a cheap guy for my game script. So he wasn't. Yeah. He didn't care about value. Like we do that value lineup. He wasn't looking for value. He was specifically looking for a cheap guy in that game.
Yeah.
And that's just a lineup I'm not going to build because that's a lineup that pings for first place. Like it's not trying to min cash. It's not trying to build a bankroll. It's trying to like skyrocket, and that's how it's going to fuel. And that's not how I build lineups at all.
Yeah, well, there was 4 guys that weren't a part of the Seattle-Atlanta game, including the defense. Like, not something I would ever build.
I mean, it's a solid defense. Like I get each. Like I can see a thought on each play. Like the Rams defense actually like. For as bad as they've been this year, like the Raiders suck. So playing the defense against the Raiders is always a solid idea.
Yeah, and this next coming week it will be Gardner Minshew again. You
saw they signed Desmond Ridder.
I did see that. It's Gardner Minshew will be starting quarterback this week. Thanks, Gov. Gardner Minshew's starting.
Yes, but Ridder's there.
Oh man, I don't know what the Raiders are doing. That's the only thing I know about the Raiders is I'm playing Brock Bowers until he's 7K. He has deserved to be higher than Travis Kelce, and so if he's not higher than Travis
Kelce, he almost bonused and had like a monster
game.
I'm
playing him.
By the way, this DK was a yard off of his bonus, so maybe him getting just one more play in that game does matter more than I was thinking. But I just noticed that
7 targets is still solid.
Oh no, that's a very good game. If you played DK, you're still happy with the 19 points.
I will say I'm not afraid of the double tight end, so you'll see it from me. But
it's tight end week this week, so you got to.
Brock Bowers is at 6K is starting to be at the price where it's like, oh, you're as much as a good wide receiver. Forget this double tight end one.
Also, Jameis was named the starter today for those who didn't see it.
Famous Jameis?
I will probably be playing some Jameis. Not very much.
Oh, Jameis and Njoku. Oh, Njoku's totally in play. Like I might, it's going to be
Njoku's definitely in play. But I figured I wanted to let you guys know.
And Kittle's on Sunday night, so we have to Kittle.
So is Tillman, by the way. Tillman looked really good for the Browns.
Yes.
Really cheap. That's why I don't know if I want to do the Jameis thing because there's so many cheap plays this week. Like so many.
There really is a lot of cheap. I think this week's going to be very interesting.
Well, that's what I'm saying, though, Donnie. I think we can use this review as how to get the leverage because I do think we're going to see overreaction theater. Because, for example, this week, I think one of the it at least finished in the top 5 in the Millie, I believe, had Tim Patrick. The other lineup had Khalif Raymond. So people were going to be like, oh, this one in the middle of last week, let me try to get the cheap wide receiver. And I think people were going to. Now, we kind of had that same mindset, though.
So many snowflakes at the top, by the way. Man, it was snowflakes everywhere.
It was a cold day in fantasy this last week. Cold day in fantasy.
Cold.
It really was. And if you look at the lines we built here, we'll go back to our lines and then get Gov's kind of final thoughts of the week, because I like to do that and then go to our lineups, but it just works so well to transition now. But this was one of the weeks. So again, I mentioned it. It was either you really were terrible or you made money. There was no middle ground, and our lineups really showed through. We usually bet about $4 a week with some of my personals, and then you guys' lineup. I have no problem being transparent. This lineup basically broke us even, and I'm very fortunate for it. And actually, I think I'll go on a limb here and say I think it was one of our best built lineups of the whole entire year. I think we got very unfortunate with Juju Smith-Schuster. Now, Evan used to get really upset with me sometimes for playing the value player. But this week shows that you can take a 0 in a lineup and win. 1. 2, sometimes you have to play the chalky guy because you know what, he's a good player and he's going to have ownership. This proves it. I mean, this could have been any zero wide receiver that you thought could have had a good game script. Juju was in a good spot. Now, there was injury concerns. I just no-waived him. I probably shouldn't have no-waived him, but I did.
Yeah,
and
we should have never done it with a hamstring. I will say that vindicates I'll probably never play a hamstring injury again. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but
even that, Donnie, I'm not saying like I'm waving the white flag. I'm never going to do this again. I'm saying I should have paid more attention to the waves. Like I should have paid more attention to the information. And that's on me. That I'm not going to sit up here and say, well, if I would have done this different, if I would have played Tim Patrick, I did play Tim Patrick this season, by the way, in a showdown. I don't think he was a good play this week, and in a main lineup. There are times that you want to play a play and times that you don't. And I thought he was too thin this week, but it worked out for someone. That's cool.
Funny enough, there was one hamstring injury where I did follow that rule. In my season-long fantasy league, I refused to play any of my Aaron Jones stuff because I thought there's a chance he gets out, and so I followed my rule. And then just for some reason, I broke it, and and that's the thing. I feel like there should have never been a reason for me to break that rule. Well, that was just me not paying attention.
I know Gov's a bit of a DFS historian. I think Jamar Chase last year had almost it wasn't his biggest game, because I know his biggest game was 40. That was the game he went crazy. But I want to say he had a 29-point game that week, and nobody was on him that week, and it was because he had a hamstring and he was questionable. And so it does work out where he's injured and his ownership is lower, because I do think this hamstring.
Oh yeah, no. If Juju had no hamstring worries at all, at that price, he would have been 40%.
That's what I'm saying. Because in our private Discord, when we do our conference call before the game, people were talking, and I don't think I'm talking out of school here because it's past knowledge, but people were saying he is the most underpriced guy based on the volume upside for this week, and I do believe that. Even looking at hindsight, he was a good player. But again, this is what we do. This is tournaments. Sometimes you have to build a very good lineup for the chance that, hey, I'm going to build 3 of these. 2 of them are going to be terrible. I just need 1 of them to go up there. And that's what we got. And I thought we built it very smart. I really do.
Well, I mean, Sanders, he finally kind of popped off for us, which is very nice. I can't imagine he's under 3K again this week. That'd be criminal.
He's under 3K.
Come on.
He's still 2,900.
He's 28.
He went down.
I think he's under 3K. I shouldn't say he is, because I looked at a lot of cheap tight ends. I'm pretty sure he's 29, 28, something like that. He's close, but he's right there.
I mean, it's double tight end week. You got a double tight end pretty much every lineup with
Yeah, but it's probably going to be in Njoku Bowers or something.
More reason to play Sanders and be different.
There's a lot of tight end options this week.
I'm not joking. I will have 100% double tight end all weekend long.
How
13 games slate too. Ooh, big slate. Big slate. How many afternoon games? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
It's the
doggy.
It's the spookiest slate of the year, Gov.
Oh, I also did a bit of research before this show too. I want to say, don't hold me to it. Somebody can actually tell me in the comment section if they really want to do the research. I want to say our value lineup is the most profitable lineup we've had all year. Now this one obviously helps that tremendously as we 4x'd it. You know, we took $1 to 4, so that helps it a lot. But I do think this build has been our most successful kind of structure build. Was there anything
God, I wish I had more Gibbs in my personal stuff. It would have been so
yeah. No,
a lot of running backs did really good this week, though.
And I guess that's why I like Gibbs though, because I really did view him as a running back and wide receiver. You know, I thought he was an underpriced Kamara, but I thought he was at a price where he was going to be a hard click for someone, because if you were going to pay up, you could make the argument, why don't I just pay up for Barkley?
Yeah, that's the real argument. It was, if you're paying up, why not Barkley? And
But
I did that argument, and I just said Gibbs saved you so much more. It was worth it in my head.
I'll answer that though. I thought that game script or that game was going to be overowned. Like, I thought, here's what happens: you play Barkley, you then convince yourself to play Hurts. You know,
I don't think. I think the Barkley revenge game was real. Did you guys see the Barkley clip in, like, the mic'd up clip?
I did. I know he was definitely pumped up.
Yeah. Sirianni asked him if he wanted to stay in the game because he was like 13 yards off his career high. So Sirianni went up to him and asked him if he wanted to stay in the game, and he said, "Nah, give it to the young guys," which is really nice.
I did see that in the press conference. I didn't know that was the actual.
Yeah, that was the actual conversation. And Sirianni kept on making sure he was okay with it, and yeah, they were good with it. So,
Gov, I got a question.
It's just 13 yards. It's career high. It's like, it's not a big
deal. Career high versus your former team, though, that didn't want to pay you. It definitely meant a lot, I think. I get why you didn't do it, though.
That is a narrative, though, that gets over evaluated in DraftKings, either positive or negative. Sometimes people have this incentive like, oh, he used to be a former teammate, or, you know, his coach hates him. You know, like, we see that almost every week too. And you got to know when it matters and when it doesn't. I do think it mattered to Barkley, but like I was saying, that's why remember we were deciding between Hurts and Allen in this lineup, and I said I'll play Allen, but we got to do it with Cooper. And it's because I was afraid if we go with Hurts, then you guys would convince me to go Barkley, or we go with AJ Brown, and then we build something that would be totally...
It was close, though, between Hurts and AJ, right? AJ had a big touchdown, I thought.
It might have been. But my point was, I just thought that was a chalky kind of game script, and I wanted to get off of it.
Can you double check that, Gov, if you have DK Lobster pulled up, about what the difference is? It was 40 points to... So 40 to... Yeah, 40 about. Yeah. So it's about the same.
So it probably wouldn't have hurt us, but who knows what we would have done.
Well, it would have been a different price because Cooper was so much cheaper than Brown.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, the Buffalo stack worked out better because it was a much cheaper stack. It let us get in like Jefferson's 21.
Yes.
Which was like one of the better wide receivers on the slate other than Amon-Ra. Like, you should have had Amon-Ra, but Jefferson also did okay.
I did have Amon-Ra too. I mean,
I definitely had Amon-Ra and Jefferson in a lineup together. And that one, I don't think cashed. I can double check.
See, but that's the thing. Another thing I want to talk about with the slate is what not enough people are focusing on. They're looking at the 0 they took in their lineup and just getting really upset with that. This lineup actually got very unlucky in the fact that Jefferson almost had a lot bigger of a day. Like, we played man-to-man coverage on him, and there was like a few passes that, like, if they were thrown different, or if Jefferson jumped different, or the defender just didn't play tremendous coverage, that could have been easily a 50-yard gain, a touchdown. Like, the Lions play a lot of man-to-man coverage, and I'm telling you, he was like a shoestring away from catching one of those amazing passes and even having a bigger day.
Yeah, so my Jefferson and Amon-Ra lineup did cash actually, which is nice. And that one also had 2 injuries.
Well, we talked about injuries and the negative. Let's talk. I think the injury to Brandon Ayuk is what made this lineup cash and what saved our day when we got Kittle. Like Kittle was having a decent day, but I do think like probably at least 5 or 6 points were directly correlated to both of their wide receivers being out.
Yeah, I mean Kittle was a. I mean, I thought he had one in the back of the end zone that he just couldn't get his feet down for, if I'm not mistaken. Kittle almost had a really big day. Didn't work out, but it did. 15
So
points.
did again, I'll mention it because it looks like he had a decent day, 7 points. Chase Brown also had I want to say it was a 52-yard run called back on a week, not a week. I'm obviously biased, so I shouldn't be biased. But it was a very questionable holding call. You could easily have not called it, and that would have been a 50-yard gain. So these like small point margins seem, they don't seem that drastic because you got points from them and there were so many zeros. But these are things that make the lineup so much different. Or even like what Donnie was mentioning at the top, it's like, well, maybe Gibbs is a good play, but no one expected a 60-yard run. But that also bakes into the points. I mentioned historic. This honestly, I think, is the lowest score I've ever had. I think 90 was the lowest before, and I don't remember scoring in the 80s.
It's not pretty. It's definitely not the prettiest lineup. Did J-Mo get hurt, or what happened there?
No, he wasn't.
He just didn't boot.
Like what was crazy is on the Gibbs runs, Jameson Williams was the lead blocker. Like he was fast, he was doing what he just wasn't his day to get targets. And then the one he actually caught, he lost yards on and almost lost a lot of yards. Like he almost got negative points on his one play.
Interesting. You figure, he would have.
Yeah,
his worst week of the season, he ends up getting busted for PEDs.
Well, I'll tell you because I mentioned it up the top. Someone won because of Cleve Raymond, I believe, in the Millie or one of the big contests. That was a total Jameson Williams normal route and play. Like I've seen them run a similar play against Dallas a couple weeks ago, and Jameson Williams ran that same kind of pattern. This week it was Cleve Raymond. That's going to happen when you have so much depth and talent on a team. We used to see it with the 49ers for years. People will be like, is Christian McCaffrey worth that much? It's like, yes, he is most weeks. There are weeks where that $10K that you pay for Christian McCaffrey is going to bite you, but you pay for consistency. And sometimes, you got to know what lineup you're building. And this lineup just wasn't going to work because it had so many snowflakes. But at least I felt like we built it to be unique, and it was.
The worst part about this lineup is no one got hurt. Like it was our worst lineup, yet this was the lineup where everyone was healthy. That's very rare.
And it wasn't like we went for consistency. We took some upside shots, but then we also played some chalk. I mean, Chuba Hubbard had been smashing. Gov was kicking himself, for a couple of weeks for not playing him. He was 32% owned, and he got there because of a garbage touchdown.
Like, if you even want to say got there.
Yeah, I wouldn't even say got there.
I guess I want to say got there because he's like our second highest scorer on this lineup. I mean, it gets pretty ugly. But I mean,
behind the quarterback.
When I say got there, I mean it was like the last play of the game, basically. Like we're talking late fourth quarter. So
just not wanting to get shut out.
but like I said off the top, it's just points. It doesn't matter if Kelsey gets 10 and Hubbard gets another 5. This lineup still loses. So
I didn't watch that game at all. Gov, did you watch the Panthers game at all, or no?
I some, yes.
Okay, so was that the Commanders' defense being better than everyone initially had thought, or is that the Panthers just being bad, or both?
That's
I got
column A and column B.
Okay.
I don't think it was talent at all. I think they gave up. I think emotionally and physically they gave up.
I don't even know how to respond in this situation, considering All of my lineups scored like 77 points.
What?
That's got to be your lowest, right?
Pretty much, yeah. I think that's the lowest I've ever had in a week.
Can we see one of them?
No! No!
No,
What are you sickos?
I'm just curious.
I agree to do the show.
I don't know. Maybe do you really? You want to? God, you people love to watch car crashes, don't you?
Yeah,
Jesus.
People love drama.
Obviously, Gov is a much better DFS player than I am. I'm just curious as to what it looks like.
I'll just show you the absolute worst one. Okay, 77.2.
This is not to make fun of Gov in any way.
77.24, 77.2.
This is out of sheer curiosity.
That's the wrong one. That's the wrong one. That's the wrong one.
I do think there's some bad humor though, and people trying to make fun of these kind of things. Like at least what we can do is Gov can pull it up and we can process. Like, did you just get unlucky? What can we learn? Like honestly, this kind of
also I can't believe Whittington got a 0. Wow.
It was very similar to Juju, where they were like, "Oh, he's banged up a bit, but don't worry about it. He's going to play." And I think he played less snaps than Juju did, Donnie. I believe he played 5. So, but it wasn't even like one of the things where you'd be like, "Oh, I was at the store, I missed the news." Like he's out. He played 5 snaps.
Okay, but Love's a good play. I mean, Jefferson's a really good play.
Should have had Gibbs instead of A-Chain.
Yeah, but I almost played A-Chain actually. No, this is actually much better than I thought it would be. Obviously, Love, it makes sense if you're going to play him, bring Reed with him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think this, on paper, this lineup is not bad.
I haven't pulled up mine yet, but I'll just do it for the sake of time. I won't actually show it. My pain is actually worse, right? Because you scored 77. It looks like a bad number. I missed the cash line, I want to say, on the majority of my personal lines by like less than 2 points because they all had Daniels.
Yeah, I mean, I think what was Daniels' ownership about? Do we know the exact?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
I'd imagine it was pretty high, considering.
It was actually somewhat suppressed from what I remember because he was the highest owned quarterback on the slate with no Lamar Jackson.
But that's why, I mean, I was able to cash.
That shows you that sometimes like it is better to sweat a bad lineup than be like out for me. But I know people are different. Some people would rather like, oh, I'm going to take a 0 because of an injury. I can just move on and close out. Those move on and close out nights, they hurt my heart a little bit more.
That's how it was for us when Evans got hurt. I mean, Evans last night when we were playing a little showdown. I know we didn't talk about that at all beforehand, but Logan and I both played Evans in a lineup, and he went from almost catching his second touchdown in the game and
he could have like 4 touchdowns.
Yeah. And he was clearly dominating his matchup, and then he drops a touchdown, gets hit as he's falling to the ground, and he gets hurt.
And maybe that's somewhat lucky. You'd be like, oh, he was dominating, but he was wide open on that.
He was quite literally dominating his matchup. It was.
I'm honestly not as worried about Mike Evans. Like that's a hamstring. It is going to take some time, but like it's nothing that he's worried.
No, like, but that's just the point. I got lucky on Sunday.
Godwin though, jeez.
Godwin, man, it's pretty ugly if they don't want to replay it on TV and force it down your throats. I'll
just make it pretty simple. This is how feet go. This is how Godwin's feet work.
Yeah, exactly. Good.
That's one of the few times I haven't been on the internet to see how it went, then the replay of it. But
it actually helps me be a better human. It really does.
I do go and watch them just because, like, I don't know. I probably shouldn't.
I've been through 12 surgeries in my life. It really does. Like, whenever I can see pain and, like, I can process what happened, it not only helps me recover, but it helps me put things in perspective. And I do think Gov, this was a week where the quicker you can put things in perspective, the better. Like we broke even on this slate. If you guys have noticed, I don't hide it. The bankroll is a bit lower because I played NBA tonight, so we'll see how that goes. But we actually broke even on DraftKings. I was actually up on FanDuel because they allow you to play the Sunday night game, which is usually a fun game. It's usually a game you expect points in because Sunday night football is on the main slate. They obviously want it to be a marquee, important game. People always ask me, so I should just mention it. That's why I play a lot of PMR FanDuel over there, because that is the game that they want points to be scored in. And
it's always low owned on FanDuel for some reason. Always.
People don't want to wait for outcomes, right? And it was a way for me not to play Daniels and not play high priced quarterbacks. The one cheap quarterback they had over there was Aaron Rodgers, and you could pair Aaron Rodgers with Devontae Adams.
And that was a pretty cheap pairing, considering.
Here's what happened, though. I played Adams and Devontae Adams. Now, I got very fortunate with the Pickens bring back. Pickens is what actually made my day really profitable. And I don't bring that up. I do kind of, because I am a human. I still have an ego, believe it or not. I am proud of myself for making that lineup. But my whole point is to diversify your portfolio. Have a good bankroll management. So then, like I say, this week, I really do think people are going to overreact. I think there's going to be more 3K wide receivers in lineups than there should be. And I'm going to build that way, but I've been building that way all year. I kind of know that's a muscle I've trained all year. So guess what? I think I can build a better 3K wide receiver lineup than you can. That's a muscle I work out. But I think a lot of people are going to work that muscle out for the wrong reasons this week.
I think next week is going to be one of our most interesting weeks for DFS the whole year.
Yeah. And I challenged the DFS gods to let me score lower than I've scored. I hit a record now. Now I have to own it. 89 is my new record. Gov hit a record. But we learn and we take in information so much. Like even though Discord channels sometimes, Gov, this can get crazy with some of the content we take in. But it's all valuable to me because it allows me to take in information and filter it through. This week, we had to filter a lot of shit. Some of it was unfortunate. Some of it, I was actually celebrating, praising injuries. I'll let you personally decide who that was. If you want to do some deep diving, it shouldn't be hard. There was times where, I was showing all kinds of colors of my football fandom. That happens as well. Truly, I think people forget to celebrate this game sometimes. Donnie mentioned it with basketball tonight. He's like, I'm going to play very light because I want to enjoy basketball being back. And that's cool too. I want to mention that at the top. So is there anything you want to take from this week? Do you want to just bury this week? Because you can bury this week, Gov, if you want. I always try to find something, but you can
again, I've had the NBA on my mind, so I didn't get to dig into this week as much as I normally would. I will say that.
Yeah.
I do need to dig into it a little more probably tomorrow morning. But there's all of the scoring went through the running back this week.
Mm-hmm.
And you can only play so many running backs. So not many people were able to get 3 ceiling running backs.
Mm-hmm.
Not everyone was able to just go Gibbs, Barkley mix and Gibbs, Barkley, main slate, Bijan. It's Walker, Hunt. There's only a couple. This is where all the scoring went. Outside of Amon-Ra, the highest scoring wide receiver on the main slate was 20 points. There's 8 or 9 running backs that had over 20 points this week. So, and most people don't pay up for running backs. So, who's going to put money into 2, 6, 7, 8K running backs?
Yep.
It's a very weird week. And then literally no one else performed. Everyone's lineup has a 9-point snowflake, a 0, a 7,
Every lineup
an 11.
has at least one snowflake, I think.
Every lineup has a snow. It's snowing.
Yeah.
It's winter.
I found one of my personal
winter is coming for DFS.
I found one of my personal lineups, and it fit perfectly to what you were saying. I played Tony Pollard in this lineup, for example. He got that 9 points you're talking about. But that 9 points is nice. It's better than a 0, obviously, but it doesn't change the outcome. And that's kind of what I was getting at this whole thing. It's I think why people were mad is because you could play a 0 and win, or you could play 8 points and lose, because those 8 points want to get you on the wrong skeleton key. We're seeing teams like really become what they are this year. We wanted the Jets to be a playoff team. We wanted to be fun. Even getting Adams, you're like, oh yeah, Adams is there now. Or you hate cheered against them. People hate cheered against the Browns, so they were happy when Watson got it.
I have had the most fun watching Jets games this season. I swear. I've had nothing. Every primetime game watching their misery as fan base. Oh,
I'm going to keep playing them in fantasy because they have fantasy talent. And
100%.
It reminds me of the Chargers last year, where it's like, oh my God, this team is so good, but they have no
a monster. Yeah.
Yeah.
That kind of play. Makes sense.
Well, DraftKings doesn't know how to price those guys either, because their team isn't trying. They're really frustrated. They're mad, but they're also talented. And so I find those are the type of games that you want to attack sometimes. Was there anything you were disappointed? This would be the last question, but is there anything you were really disappointed with?
I'm
actually happy with Zamir White. That was my mention. I'm really happy I made that one.
As truly just outside of DFS wise, I have never been more disappointed. I would say there's one time I've been more disappointed as a Patriots fan in my whole life with how they played this week.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, truly pure disappointment. It deflated my Sunday morning. It reminded me of 2014 AFC Championship footballs. That's how deflated we were.
Try to.
The Patriots can't win in London.
We were undefeated in London.
It was never going to happen.
Okay, but Donnie, do me a favor. Try to tell me. They would
riot.
Oh yeah, we got to do the spread picks too. We'll get the spread picks on our way out. But Donnie, try to tell me why you were so disappointed with the Patriots in the sense of like, did you?
I can't stand. No. I would have been fine with a loss. I would have been fine with a blowout loss. What I was never going to be fine with is the offense clicking a bit and the defense just deciding we don't exist anymore. We're staying in America. That really upset me because I can stomach bad football, but we have talent on defense. Come on, use that little bit of talent we have, right? Maybe. It's so frustrating to watch. And the only other game I will say, a Super Bowl loss is obviously always hurt, but when the Patriots lost to the Eagles, and it was because the defense didn't show up, defense not showing up when you have defensive talent is so frustrating because to me, it's not just a one thing issue when the defense doesn't show up. It literally is you didn't coach right. You weren't prepared. All this went wrong. It's so frustrating.
My problem is when you're not being transparent, but then you try to act transparent in the wrong moments. And I felt like the coaching staff for New England did that, and I felt like Polk did that. And to me, that speaks to a toxicity that needs to be eradicated. Like like Mayo saying that the team was soft was 100% truth, but you don't say it that way in that moment with that kind of. Like that's a transparency that I appreciate, but you have to say it differently.
I don't have a problem with him saying that because, I mean, we went from a very respectable defense to the past 2 weeks literally not being able to tackle.
But that's my point now. I don't mind him saying it either. I just think he had to pick the time to say it. You have to have a timing. There has to be a reason, like an actual, a time to motivate. And when your rookie receiver's kind of going unhinged on Twitter, and then you're going to add on top, it almost feels like you're adding.
The Polk thing was after the press conference,
but that's one triggered the other. Is my kind of point. Like I like what was said. I don't like the timing of what was said.
I mean, Polk has more drops and catches, I think, on his career so far. So yeah, hopefully that gets better. But I'm not going to write him off. Obviously, it's not even.
That's the kind of culture stuff that just as a football fan I don't like to. But
I will say, Boston media will not put up with Polk for much longer. If this is how it's going to be.
Wow. I don't think they have much choice, but
Boston media will get players kicked out, and whether that's right or wrong, it does happen.
Yeah, but that was a culture that when they respected New England, maybe we don't see that again.
Maybe not.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not. But, as a Patriots fan, I was very happy with how the offense played, at least. I can say that for the first time in 2019, I think was the last time I was happy with the offense.
Tell the people what you are happy with, because we got our spread picks here. I think it's an interesting race, is it not? I haven't been following, obviously you've been updating us week to week, but
yes.
how's our season long?
Last week we actually didn't get an update because I had messed up, and I will be the first one to let you know. I just severely messed up last week.
I was going to let you off hook. Go ahead. I know.
But
I let him off the hook. I wasn't going to mention it. But.
No, we got to mention it. I will say, just going back to week 6, once again, Gov did lose in a head-to-head to me. So that streak continues. I don't care if he always has a better record by the end of the season. He can't beat me head-to-head. But on to week 7. It was a very it was a good week for us overall, I'd say. We got the spread pick right. Always nice to see. That puts us back to even at 3-3 for the year. Sorry, no, that's 3-4. I didn't update the loss column 1 week. So we're 3-4. Next week we'll be back to even, I'm sure, because that is a lock. Otherwise, we all got one right. We all got one wrong. I got the Lions in Pats. Pats obviously disappointed me. Putting me at 7-6-1. That's second place. Logan is third with the Chiefs +2, Jets -1.5, 5-8-1. Not very far behind of me. And Gov is at least a week in the lead, being 10-4 after going 1-1 with Houston +3 and Rams -7.
So
also, you really should have had the Rams. You really should have had the Rams -7. I don't know if you saw it. They kicked a field goal. The Raiders kicked a field goal with 3 minutes left on a 4th and goal.
I want to say the Raiders did. Maybe I think the Raiders Chargers game did that last year.
4th and goal from the 8, down 8 points, and they kicked a field goal with 3 minutes left. Might have been
Vegas has the fix.
The funny thing is, we can have fun with that. People actually believe that.
100% people believe.
Oh God, I know it's a joke. It's a joke.
The Raiders were trying to win that football game, maybe just not well coached. We could just say that for all the conspiracy.
Yeah. Let's say that. We're all going to say that. That's what we're saying.
You know what I'm happy for this week? I don't have to wake up at 9:30 in the morning. I
think you got a 2-week break of that.
I know. I'm such a football.
And then you gotta watch my Panthers play the Giants and
I don't know if I'll wake up for that one.
Look,
I don't think it's worth my time.
I know it's a lot of money. It was a luxury.
It's gonna be the greatest game on that side of the planet.
I don't treat myself a lot, so I'm gonna go ahead and get Sunday ticket. I'm gonna watch as much football as I can. I'm gonna absorb as much football on Sunday and just become a blob of football.
I did feel like a very big DJ the last 2 weeks, waking up for these games.
Yeah, I missed a birthday already for football. I told people, you're messing around. I dropped the bill. I dropped the bill on them. I told them how much I paid for Sunday ticket, how much I invest in DraftKings. I dropped the whole bill on them. I'm like, this is the money I got invested. Leave me alone on Sunday. That being said, these morning wake-ups to watch all the football have been I like them because I'm a DFS degenerate, but man, have it been.
I like them as a nerd. I really enjoy the football part. Then I get to the end of the day and I'm like, what a waste of my damn day.
It reminds me a couple years ago when me and my friends were leaving college. We were trying to keep up on college. We were like, yeah, we're going to watch all the college one year. And I don't remember. I think it was Hawaii started a football game at 11:30 Eastern, and I'm like, why did I agree to do this? So it happens on both ends of the spectrum, no matter where you are. I'm not time zone shaming here. But with that being said, why don't we get out of here? Unless you guys have any final thoughts.
No, weird week.
I mean,
weird week.
Yeah, the only final thought is go Celtics. Banner 18's finally up there.
It is. I can't believe basketball's back. But to Gov kind
Super
of
excited.
Gov kind of mentioned it before, though. Having multiple sports does help the recovery after such a weird NFL week. So again, touch some grass. There's more than football scores. We're gonna survive. Hopefully, you've done good bankroll management. We'll see you in week 8. We're gonna try to come back at our normal time, Saturday early afternoon. Donnie will still say goodnight by the end of the show, but everything will be back to normal. Take care, guys. Have a good
Bye,
one.
everyone.
Donnie's secretly in China. It is night.